Hey everyone, it's Todd the Cybertruck truck guy, and today we've got Farzad Mesbahi, if I said that right. Did I get that?
Yeah, you got it. Yeah.
Who has recently kind of blown up as a former Tesla employee. And I wanted to do an interview with him before his subscriber count surpassed mine, which will probably be by tomorrow.
Oh my God.
This current rate. I really actually wanted to get him before Dave Lee got him. I thought, well, if I can get him, if I can do an interview with him before Dave Lee gets to do an interview with him, then I'll have my own little claim to fame. And one day I'll say, remember me? I'm curious if for yourself, and then maybe what others thought, and be totally honest, when you saw the Cybertruck pull up on the stage, what was your reaction?
Yeah, for sure. First, thank you for having me. I'm super excited to talk to you. I really am. This is going to be super fun. Yeah, I was a little weirded out, to be completely honest.
Yeah.
When it first came out, it just looked so different. You know, it looked like such a crazy product, and it was just so hyped before the event too. You know, like it was one of those things like you remember all those renderings they had, like they basically like morphed together 17 different pickup trucks, and they added, I don't know, a bunch of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
So I had no idea what to expect. And then when this triangle came out, you know, this like movable triangle with wheels came out, I'm like, what the hell is that? Like, what is that?
Yeah.
And the thing that really jumped out to me was the morning after when I went to work and at Tesla, and everybody like half of the warehouse that I worked at, half of them were like wide-eyed, like what was that? Like I kind of hate it. And then the other half was like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. Like it's that love or hate. It was like super split. That was my first reaction. But then literally like 3 days later, when I really started to think about the potential of the vehicle and how just the look of it will transform the way the roads look, to be completely honest, like there's absolutely nothing that looks like that. And then you think about the price range that it's targeting, that it's going to come out at looking like that, it's going to be like nothing else that's ever been on the road before. And then I'm like, so I get to be that guy that's going to drive around in that thing? Yes, sign me up. And then everyone else's, I honestly think like everyone else's thought process around that changed at the company as well. Because then like in the weeks after, we had people saying, oh my God, I think I'm going to put down a reservation. Oh my God, I think I'm going to put down a reservation. I put down a reservation for a tri-motor like 3 days after the reveal. So I have one on order and I'm very excited to get mine.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, but
you're going to get yours before I get mine.
Maybe, who knows? Maybe.
I mean, I didn't reserve mine until it was either the end of January or the first part of February.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
So I'm up like 3 months after the reveal.
Okay. But yeah, it's just myself and others just went from this like almost horrified like thought process to like, okay, this is going to be like the coolest thing ever. And that was my first impression. But now I'm so psyched. I'm so excited for that thing.
It's funny to realize that, again, I do think there was this very 50-50 kind of opinion on it. I was very mystified. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. At first, it took a little bit of time for it to grow on me. And I had actually, it's so funny because I had earlier in the year, I hadn't had any position in Tesla at all. And earlier in the year, probably in March of was that 2019? Yeah.
I believe so.
2019, yeah. I actually had shorted a small position of Tesla.
Okay.
Because I didn't know much about the company. And I was watching all these, experts. It didn't do much. And finally I just said, you know what? Whether I think they're going to go down or not, I believe in the company. I believe in what they're trying to do. And I just don't feel right about shorting it. It wasn't a financial thing. It was like morally.
Out of principle, right?
Wrong. I need to support them.
Yeah.
And then I didn't start investing until the Cybertruck came out and until I started to really, really think, oh, this is, like you said, it's going to change everything. And so that for me was the catalyst to actually start investing.
Interesting.
So that kind of leads me to the first question I asked you, which was in the original questions. that I was listening to you you did that financial model where you sort of predicted that whatever it was, $49,000 a share for what, 20 years or 15 years?
15 years. Yeah. 2035. Yeah. Yep.
So, but you were going through your process and you mentioned you had been working on the model for 8 years, but I remember I'd watched your about the life of a Tesla employee video. Mm-hmm. I'd watched that first, and I watched the stock one. And I was like, wait, he only worked there 4, but he had the model for 8. Mm-hmm. So what was your progression? Obviously, you were a believer in Tesla as a stock, as a company, yes, I suppose, before you actually went there as an employee. So kind of walk me through your evolution. What caused you to get excited about it as a stock? And then what caused you to start at some point thinking, hey, I might try and take a stab at working there?
Absolutely. Yeah. Great question. So I really discovered the company back in 2012, 2013, around that time frame. And what really caught my eye was the car. The car itself, really cool looking car. I remember it was like, I forget what the publication was, but I saw a picture of the car. I was like, oh, this is a really cool looking car. What's the company? Oh, Tesla, all electric. That looks pretty cool. And then what started happening is around that time frame, I really became a big fan of the company. I started watching videos on Elon Musk, and he came across as a very sincere, honest guy that's trying to do the right thing. So that grabbed me right away. And then I started joining all the different forums, like the Tesla forums. I know Tesla.com. I don't know if they still have the original forums, but they had a forum base for customers and fans to join. Then you had Tesla Motors Club, which was that a huge community, especially on the investor side. And right around that time, 2012, I started. So that 2012, that would have been 3 years after I graduated college. I would have been like 24, 25 at the time. And I started really taking an interest into investing. I had a couple extra bucks I was earning from my job. And I'm like, you know what? I want to dabble in buying some shares. I'm trying to figure out, plan my future or whatever. And then on the Tesla Motors Club, there were all on the investor section of the forum. There were all these amazing, it's just such an amazing content base from all these fans that were saying this company has ridiculous potential. And you had all these like very thorough models and sort of justifications from people that said this is why Tesla's going to be a huge one. And one of the biggest ones that I follow was Dave Lee. I remember he used to post back in TMC back in 2012, 2013. Honestly, he's very, very largely responsible for me starting to invest in Tesla, because it was his posts that really kind of made my light bulb go off in my head. Like, holy crap, there's a lot of potential here. So I started investing a little bit. And then I got in probably like 4 or 5 months before.
At this time, what were you doing? What was your occupation?
Sure. I was a manager of business intelligence at a company called Phillips Pet Food and Supplies. They still distribute pet food and supplies to the entire country. And I had a team of analysts. And my background is in mathematics and statistics. So I graduated Penn State with a bachelor's in math and a minor in stat. So that's sort of my background. Just a nerd, a numbers guy, I guess.
Yeah. You worked at Tesla, so I assume.
Yeah, a lot of nerds there. I'll tell you that much. The best nerds I've ever met. So that process of discovering all that content and wanting to sort of invest got me into Tesla. I threw in a few bucks into Tesla, and then the run-up started that original 2013, I think it was Q2 or Q3, where they posted their first ever profitable quarter. It made the stock go from $30 to like $180 or something. I was like, whoa, okay, what the hell just happened, right? And at that point, I just became obsessed. I just became obsessed with the company, about the product, about the mission, anything Elon was touching. I discovered SpaceX. Solar City was a company at the time before they merged with Tesla, and that really that whole time period, really from 2012, 2013 up through when I started working at Tesla 2017, I was just a rabbit. You could not get me to shut up about the damn company. You just could not. Like, my friends would constantly give me grief, would you just talk about something else? And I'm like, well, you don't understand like this. You don't understand the potential of this damn thing. It's going to be such an incredibly life-changing thing for everybody. And then so I was a huge fan, big investor in the company. And then around 2017, an opportunity came about where Tesla opened a facility in the city that I lived in at the time, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. They opened a parts distribution warehouse. So they were looking to expand their parts distribution from the West Coast exclusively out to the East Coast as well. So their supply chain can become a little bit more efficient. And initially, I thought it was the posting for the position was a typo, because I'm like, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, like why the hell would Tesla want to open a facility in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania? We have cows and farms, and like it's a cool town. It's very niche. It's this Christmas city.
Yeah.
But I'm like, come on, like Tesla here. I'm like, Bethlehem, Israel, maybe they're looking to like go international or something, not Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. But it wasn't a typo; it was real. So, and around that time, the company that I work for, Philips, which to this day is some of the best work that honestly that some of the best people I've ever worked with, to be honest. They were looking to move the headquarters from Easton down to Charlotte, North Carolina. Okay, and around that time, sort of my wife and I talked, and we're like, okay, so do we want to move, or do we want to kind of explore what else is out there? So we decided to explore, and then we came across the posting, and I applied. Just I'm like, there's no way this is real. I'm going to apply anyway. They got back to me. They're like, hey, we're actually interested. Would you be willing to interview? I'm like, hell yeah! Are you kidding me? Hell yeah! And then they hired me. And it all worked out. So not only was I honestly felt like I was living the best life ever.
Right.
Big fan, and now I get to work for the company that I believe in. Psh,
Right.
Sign me up. And then 4 years later, I'm here.
So you get this job at your kind of your dream company, right?
Yes, sir.
And now reality hits. You're showing up, you're working, you start to work the Tesla lifestyle.
Yeah.
How quickly did you realize this is very different than what I'm familiar with?
First day,
for
sure. Yeah.
What did an average week look like? Were you working 5 days a week, 6 days a week, 7 days a week? What's the schedule like?
It was basically every day. Yeah. The some weeks it was 6 weeks or 6 days. Some weeks it was 7 days. If there was a holiday in there, like Christmas or something, it was 5 days. We try to make it a little bit more reasonable. But these were 80-hour weeks easily. Yeah, easily.
And you go into that, they don't hide from that, right? They make that pretty clear.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. They're very upfront and honest about the type of work that you'll be facing at the challenging environment, and just how much trust is being put on you to really drive the mission forward and do what's needed to be done. That they don't really hide that. But for me, that first day was such a, and what was really interesting for me too is, like, before that, I left the company. So Philips, I was a director of business intelligence and pricing. Back office, I had a team of 10 people. I had a real nice office. I reported to the CEO of the company. I mean, I was in a very, very, very good spot, and I'm very thankful for that opportunity up to this day and all the mentorship I received. But then when I moved to Tesla, it was the first day I joined as an analyst by title, really, but really my job was to go in and help bring that building up to speed with whatever I could help with, right? That wasn't just specifically narrowed down to analytics. It was really anything, right? And that first day, I got there at around 7 a.m. and then we closed the building down at 10 p.m. And then I went home to my wife, and I'm like, "Holy shit!" Sorry, I don't know if I can curse. Can I curse?
Yeah.
There, I was like, "Yeah, holy shit!" Like, man, like this is going to be extremely challenging, and it's going to require a lot of my time. That first day was completely nuts because really the expectation was from the get-go. It was like, okay, welcome to Tesla. Can you help us fix this real quick? I was like, okay, sure. Like, do you have any like documentation? They're like, what? Just go fix it, And I'm like, okay, all right, I'll go fix it. So then it took a lot of, collaborating with people, learning new processes, learning how to do things I've never done before. And that was really what stood out to me is that everyone's really viewed as a problem solver. These sort of like, there's definitely departments and there's titles, and there are certain expectations that you have as somebody in that role. But if you're able to make an impact outside of that specific role, Tesla does an amazingly good job at empowering you to do that, right? So wherever the help is needed, if there's people that think that can make an impact, Tesla is generally very, very supportive in doing that. And that was what was so different, is that from the first day you're entrusted to make changes or to make a big impact in something that you may not even be familiar with, but you might have a skill set or a talent base that is complementary to that issue or challenge that they're having at any given time.
So in the facility you were working, what was the total approximate staff size? How many people were there?
Yeah, so when I joined, it was roughly around 40 people. And they were responsible for shipping parts to service centers and body shops, really anywhere east of Colorado and east. So it was a pretty big geographical space in a not a very big facility, but they were responsible for a lot. And over time, the supply chain grew and it got a little bit more mature, and we got more support from other facilities. But it was a tiny building with not a lot of people responsible with to do a lot of things. Like they were responsible for delivering to a pretty big geographical area in the United States.
So in that group of 40 people, there's obviously people that are sort of more the problem solvers, and then there's people that are actually doing the actual freight handling. They're actually receiving things and putting things out. You made it sound like there's a lot of blurring of the lines in that.
Yes.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely.
What's the commitment level for, say, when we think of blue collar people that are actually running the machines, people that are doing that, are they operating with the same level of intensity, or is there kind of still sort of a bit of an obvious split between, are they paid hourly or is everyone on salary?
Yeah, so there's definitely, so what you would call your material handlers, they would be hourly. But then you would have folks that are part of the, I guess, management team or the analytics team or anything else like that would be paid salaried. But especially earlier on, the lines were extremely blurred. So everybody was just there to make a difference, and at that point, really everybody was getting paid overtime that was hourly. So it's almost like, I wouldn't say that everybody was getting paid the same at that time. There was definitely some differences, but everybody was there trying to solve any problem that was there, right? So at the beginning of the day, I might spend 3 hours developing a dashboard and a metric to publish so that we can start tracking a certain thing we're doing at the warehouse. And then for the next 3 hours, I would jump on a tugger and go pick because we're falling behind, right? And that's the kind of sort of let me just gather my thoughts here real quick. Especially earlier on, that was the kind of thing you had to do just to make sure that the building was delivering the products to the people, And then over time, as the operation grew more mature, then you would have it where you had a little bit more focus around material handlers are more focused on picking and packing and shipping and receiving and all that stuff. And then you got your engineers, that are more focused on process development and making sure that the warehouse is laid out right. You got the analysts, creating dashboards and whatever. But I think the beauty behind the Tesla culture is that if a material handler at any point wants to start learning about analytics or wants to start learning about engineering or whatever, at least in our building, we were very open about saying, they were approached the manager and say, hey, his name was Greg. Greg, do you mind if I, take a couple of days and I sit with Farzad and I learn about this? He's like, yeah, sure. Just especially if they're a high performer, right? If they're not performing very well, that would be different. They would say, well, let's make sure that we're getting you up to speed to where you need to be. But if there are people that are really making an impact, they're like, yeah, sure, go come here, and we'll make some time for you to make that happen. So it was Tesla is in my opinion was extremely good at identifying high talent and then figuring out ways to put them in positions where that talent can really benefit the company and their development. That's where I think Tesla does a really good job.
So was it your impression that the attitude about Tesla as a company ran through all of the employees? And I'm really curious about production type people, whether or not they have that same sense of hey, there's a mission here, we're
Yes.
contributing, there's a chance. I'm guessing they still get to participate in the stock
Yes.
program. So is there that sense of ownership and sort of vision?
Yes.
Is it felt by everyone, not just?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Not, I mean, I'm not going to say 100% of the staff feels that way, but a large majority of the Tesla employee base, from what I've seen, in my opinion, is absolutely 100% bought into the mission, and they're very excited to be there, to make that happen. And of course, you're going to have a much smaller subset that are, you know, it might just be that they just want to go there and do their job, and they're not really interested about the passion as much, and that's completely fine. But because the company can be so demanding in a way, that there's just so many problems that need to be solved, that you could get into a situation where somebody loses interest in the job, and then they leave, and it is what it is. But there is a lot of people that are very much, it's honestly very similar to the community outside of Tesla. So like yourself and like myself now, right? Everybody else, all the Tesla YouTubers, the Tesla fans, the Tesla community folks, it's that passion exists internally as well. And it's pretty special.
What percentage, you came in a pretty strong Tesla fan.
Yes.
Experientially, what do you think the percentage of people that are coming in are already, they already see Tesla as a really they're fans, so to speak?
Yeah. Pretty high percentage.
Like
Pretty high percentage.
more than 80%?
I would say 80%. I would say probably around 80%. I definitely say way more than 50%, but there are some folks that would come in that have heard of Tesla, but they're not like super passionate about its mission. Like, no, I heard it's a really good company to work for, and they build cool cars. That was what some of the folks would say. But yeah, I would say a pretty significant percentage of the folks are definitely passionate about what Tesla does.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. So what was the hiring process like? How many interviews were there? What were the mechanics of it? Did you just go in for send in a resume or apply for a position, did one interview, and that was it? Or how did that work?
Yeah. So I did, how many interviews did I have? So I had an interview with the HR person. Then I had an interview with staff, so with the manager and the supervisor at the time at the facility in person. Then I had, I think, 2 phone interviews with the director and another person that was in the leadership role. And then at that point, then they extended an offer, and then we talked about the offer, and then, we found some common ground, and then they brought me on.
Do they have any kind of testing they do or analytics they do that you have to go through, or is it just all interviews?
For me, no. For me, it was mostly just an interview process. I don't know if there are other positions in Tesla where they they put you through a test of sorts to try and figure out, hey, are you good at this or not? Okay. But for me, there wasn't like a like, can you prove to us that you can code? It was more like, okay, so based on our conversation with you, and I mean, I did get asked technical questions just to make sure that I that I was honest about what I was conveying. But yeah, there was no like, let's take the next 2 hours tomorrow to like solve this problem or to code this thing. That was not part of my process.
So you were there for 4 years.
Yep.
Can I ask what it was that caused you to say, hey, I think my time in Tesla is winding down? What was your process for making that decision?
Yeah, for sure. I actually, funny enough, I literally just finished recording a video just about that topic, so it's like super fresh in my mind.
You can be brief here.
It's completely fine. Yeah. So the thing that started the thought process was COVID. To be completely honest, COVID. I feel like it's been such a transformational phase for so many people, and one of the key things that it gave me was time to be very introspective. It's like, okay, so who am I as a person? What do I want to do? What are my passions, right? So like, I'm 34 years old now. We don't have any kids, my wife and I, and during that time, the Tesla stock was going nuts, and I was gaining this incredible financial freedom and security, in addition to all the other investments and real estate that we owned at the time and all that stuff. It was just this, when so many people were going through so much hardship, we somehow ended up with this ridiculous gift from the universe of financial freedom. And I'm like I almost felt incredibly guilty, like accepting that, but I really thought about it. I'm like, man, I'm 34 and we're not on this earth very long. Like, I feel like this is the perfect time for me to just figure out what being a human is, right?
Yeah.
And I fought with that for a really long time because I felt really guilty wanting to do that, especially when I had such an incredible opportunity and a job, and the people that I worked with at the company, the most smart, kind people I've ever worked with in my life. I felt almost completely stupid having those thoughts. But then over time, it became clear that if I don't take advantage of that opportunity, I'm going to regret it. I'm going to regret it. And I put in my notice with the intention of traveling the world, pursuing my passions. Starting my YouTube channel was part of it too. I really thought I could bring a very unique perspective, having worked there and having been a fan for so long, and really understanding the ins and outs of the company and the mission of that company. I thought I could make an impact there. But yeah, it's just that freedom of travel, freedom of time, waking up and deciding what I want to do that specific day, really was such a tremendous gift that I can't turn it down, and I can't tell you how happy I am that I made that decision, and how thankful I am that I was given that gift. It's completely mind blowing to me. I still, to this day, I don't believe it.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I wonder, during, we know, I'm sure you've heard about the Great Resignation.
Yes.
And how that's affecting sort of globally, but I wonder, in terms of tenure, what's your experience of somebody that is operating at the level you're operating with, that kind of pressure in, kind of in their mid-career, 20, call it late 20s to late 40s.
Sure.
Is there kind of a consistent, do a lot of people end up moving on after 4 or 5 years, or are you the exception, or are you the rule?
That's a really good question. So what I've seen, honestly, it's a mix. It's a mixed bag, because there are folks that. So if I think about folks that are in my situation, I think there are more people working there and are staying there than are leaving, and that's because of I think of just how much joy they get from being part of that mission. That's very important to them. And which I completely get and I completely respect. There's definitely people that have left, for sure. I mean, I'm not going to say like Tesla, like somehow like everybody's staying there. No, there's definitely folks that leave for one reason or another. But the passion of the company and I guess knowing what you have there seems to be a very, very big pulling force to keep people there, which I think is like kind of weird, because of just how demanding that job is, yet people are still willing to do it day in and day out. That says a lot about just how important the mission is of the company, and
especially if they've been able to benefit from the run up. And
yes,
you're in a position now. You're in a position where work is a choice, not an obligation.
Sure.
And I think that's really interesting to see how people that are in a similar situation as you, what the rest of their trajectory is going to look like at Tesla. I think that's super fascinating. But
I do think in the next like decade, for sure, you're going to see a lot of folks that had worked at Tesla that will now exit Tesla. But what's going to be really interesting to see is that you have all these folks that are so incredibly talented and smart that now have a bunch of capital in their hands,
right?
And they're going to be able to do amazing things with that. Like that's knowing the kind of people that work there. These aren't people that will just sit on their hands and just live a very comfortable life. I don't see them as that way. They're high impact individuals that love to bring value. So I'm personally super excited to see what like the Tesla generation, those folks that have worked there, what they're going to create. Like I'm personally super excited for that.
Yeah.
but I think over time they'll exit. Obviously, I mean, there's a natural ebb and flow. It doesn't matter how passionate you are about a company. People will have different levels of their exit points. At some point they're going to be like, this is good. I'm going to move on to the next chapter, and I'm very excited to see what that is. And the new talent that will go into Tesla is going to be amazing to see what they do as well. It's going to be a really cool cycle.
That's awesome. One of the reasons why I think you've gotten so much success is that, to my knowledge, and again, I obviously can't watch every person out there that's creating Tesla videos, but obviously I watch a lot of them. I haven't seen a former Tesla employee that has done well with YouTube. I don't know if they've tried and failed or what, but what is it? Why do you think, unless I've missed someone, why do you think there's so few that have done what you're doing?
I honestly think about that myself. I don't know if one of these days Elon's lawyer is going to knock down my front door and be like, "You can't do this. What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh shit, I'm whatever." I mean, I'm pretty confident I'm not doing anything that would get me in trouble at all. I'm not disclosing any company secrets or anything like that.
Yeah.
I thought about this a little bit, and I definitely don't want to be premature in saying that I'm being successful in my channel. I definitely I've seen a lot of momentum, right, and I've been incredibly thankful for that.
Well, I haven't seen another. Let's put it another way. Channel aside, I think your video about your experience at Tesla, that whatever, I don't know where that was for a second. That one, I think, is over 50,000 views already, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
So I haven't seen just a video, not a channel, but just a video by a former employee that has seemingly done so well. So I think you're going to do well, but I just am curious. I just wondered if you might have any insights why that hasn't happened.
Yeah, I don't know. I think maybe the overlap of Tesla employee, comfortable in front of a camera, willing to share their story. Maybe that overlap is not very big. I don't know. I think it might be that when people exit Tesla, they're like, "I'm done. I got my Tesla fix. I'm going to move on. I don't want to think about Tesla anymore." That may well could be just because of how intense it is.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. I think that it's a combination of those two things. I think there is it's the sort of that overlap of those three things, and then how much a previous employee is willing to just keep talking about Tesla, because we talk about Tesla so damn much when we're there. It takes up so much mental real estate that maybe that passion might fizzle out by the time they leave, and then maybe they don't stop loving that mission, but they're like, okay, but now it's time to move on. Now,
right? They're just exhausted, maybe when they. Yeah. So I think it's also probably very beneficial that you were a Tesla fan before.
Yes.
And I think that you probably have been around the Tesla community and you've consumed a lot of that content and you're familiar with it and you sort of understand it from a sort of a social media kind of standpoint. I don't know. Yes. That's why I when I saw your first video, I was like, why aren't there more of these? Why? I agree. Is this the case? I agree. But good for you. Great.
I agree.
Great for you. It's just, it's super interesting. So we talked just briefly about I'm assuming you're operating under a non-compete, non-disclosure type of agreement as is the norm with technological companies. What are the things that can you talk at all about the things? I guess my one question is there a point that gets grandfathered or do those age out? And then what are the categories that you kind of have to stay away from, but you wish you could talk about?
Yeah, I think so. I have to go back and reread the agreement. I'm pretty sure it's at least 2 years. Okay, I think it's at least 2 years that I'm bound to not share any sort of secrets about the company or anything that I've experienced firsthand that might be materially it might materially influence the company. Blah blah blah. Outside of it, whatever, however that's defined. To be completely honest, I haven't really given that much thought. I really haven't. I think for me, it's more about providing my perspective and sort of from a perspective of Tesla employee, what my thoughts are about Tesla, how I view the things that they're doing, and sort of trying to give people a little bit of an insider look as to how things operate there and how things are viewed and things like that. But I really don't have an answer for you because I haven't really thought about that at
Yeah.
all. And it will take me some time to sort of formulate an answer, I think.
I would love it if there are any. I would love it if you became a platform for talking to other ex-Tesla employees.
Yes.
That would be very interesting to see you talk to people that can't, or maybe who are in a position they've been out of it for 2 years or 3 years, and they can talk about the things that they weren't allowed to talk about 2 or 3 years ago, but now they can if there's now enough time has passed. And again, I don't know what those windows are, but the fact that you guys are both probably bound by the same thing means you could probably figure out where the lines are. And I think those would be really interesting conversations.
For sure. I have that on my notes. I have this app on my notes app on my phone. I have one of the things I want to really start focusing on. I call them interviews with Tesla monsters. Is how I have it labeled. And there's actually, I've been talking to a couple employees that have worked there before or are actually looking to exit soon. Like they're trying to do their next thing, and they've reached out and like, I watched your video. It's so cool. I share so many feelings. I'm like, oh my God, that's great. And I asked them like, hey, would you be willing to like sit down and maybe shoot the shit and talk about what Tesla was like? They're like, yeah, sure, that sounds great. That sounds super fun. I'm like, all right, when you're ready, let me know. And awesome. But again, like we're gonna have to be really careful because the last thing we want to do is a step on that NDA and be sharing things that we shouldn't be sharing. So
you said something about Elon's culture is everywhere.
Yeah.
And my question was, do people, how do they feel about the fact that from a fan standpoint, we tend to equate Elon as Tesla, Tesla as Elon, even though we know, obviously, there's a bunch of other people that are working there. Do people feel resentful? Do they care? There's this kind of Elon represents the brand, so to speak.
Yeah, I don't think employees really think about that at all. I think in some way a lot of employees look at Elon the sort of the same way, to be honest. It's like he's somebody that's single-handedly, honestly, like pulled so much of the world forward, through his companies. And a lot of the employees feel the same way. And really all they see is love from all the Tesla community, in my opinion, for what I've seen. And that's what I felt when I was there. It's just love. It's like, oh my God, we love what Elon's doing. We love what Tesla's doing. And I think there's an understanding that Tesla's a lot more than Elon, like it's Tesla is over 100,000 people now, I think. That's a lot of freaking people working at Tesla. You can't in a million years imagine one person to be making every decision or everything that has to be done there. There's a lot of autonomous folks in that company that are making decisions left or right every single day that are making very impactful things for the company. It's not just one person. And then you think about Elon himself has to split his time between SpaceX and Tesla. So realistically, on any given week on average, he's only spending 40 hours working at Tesla, if you really think about it, outside of these other things. So yeah, I don't think it really gets thought about too much. I think all in all is I think the general feeling is we have an amazing leader who surrounded himself with extremely talented people, and we're all working for an incredible mission, and we're going to bust our asses to make it happen. And we're very thankful to have such a community around us that are so passionate about the product, are so passionate about the mission, and are fighting right along with us. Like anytime adversity comes up, you have the community rises up and defends Tesla and defends Elon. As long as we deserve that defense, right? And that's just great to see. And I think ultimately that's way bigger than Elon, and I think that's how folks perceive that.
You worked at some other places. Mm-hmm. This was another of the questions I asked you, which is you've had some experience working in other places, and the question was, if you could rank Tesla on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of talent, motivation, and what did I say? Talent, motivation, and execution. Talent, motivation, and execution. If you could rank them on a scale of 1 to 10, and then rank sort of a composite of other experiences you've had on the same scale. Try and provide some context. And maybe you've only worked one other place. I wasn't sure what what your experience was, but just an idea of how to think about Tesla organizationally and those three things relative to just say normal companies.
Yeah, for sure. So my experience outside of Tesla, really the two major ones that I've had is at Philips for 7 years, where I experienced a lot of that company. I really learned that company in and out, and then I also owned my own business with my wife for about 4 years. We ran an escape room in the Lehigh Valley area of Pennsylvania. So I don't have a lot of experience in a multitude of companies. I've sort of experienced it from being at a company for a while, then being at Tesla for a while, and then having my own business. So talent, execution, and what was the other one? Talent, execution, and
motivation.
Okay. So talent, execution, motivation. So, man, I'm having a really hard time not giving tens to all three for Tesla, to be completely honest, just based on my experience. And I kind of walk through my reasoning why. Talent, it's not a secret that Tesla hires the best people in the world by far. I can't remember every time I had a position open for my team, or I was helping other teams hire, the amount of resumes that would come in from ridiculously qualified people was impossible to sift through. And then when you sat down and talked to all those people, you're like, why the hell am I even working here? All these people are way better than I am, right? So it's like you start feeling really insecure about yourself. Man. And so those like things, a talent is easily a 10 by far. The best talent in the world wants to come to Tesla, easy. And then motivation being a 10 is also, for me, like the way I describe it is the mission that Tesla has is some of the most honest and good for the world things that I've seen in my lifetime. Like, when is the last time you've seen a company that has such a fundamental goal for the entire planet, for everybody? It's not nationalist in nature. It's for humanity. And then you think about the way, from my experience when I was working there, the way you're empowered in the company. The one thing that doesn't get talked about a lot, if ever, about Tesla is that their benefit structure is incredibly good. The healthcare is amazing. You get it from day one, essentially. I think it's after 90 days you start getting coverage. Don't quote me on that. And it's very, very good coverage. Like, it's super affordable. You don't pay a lot out of pocket. You get amazing coverage. They're very supportive with when you have a kid, they have a bunch of perks around that. You got perks at work. You got a bunch of different things around that. And then you layer on top of that stock compensation and the access to the employee stock purchase program, and the fact that you have an incredibly passionate and loyal community around you and fan base. How can you not score that a 10, right? I just think that's unparalleled. And again, I'm probably biased when I say that, but that's how I come to the reasoning there. And then from an execution standpoint, I mean, that's probably the one where maybe I don't give it a full 10. Maybe let's call it a 9, I guess, in this perspective, only because being there, I know just how much sometimes you have a lot of trial and error that goes through when it comes to solving problems, but the speed at which we moved while I was there made up for any of that time. So like on my previous experiences at other companies, you would have a project that could potentially take 6 months to execute, right? But it's like executed perfectly. Everybody does their job at their time, what is supposed to be done, and it's done in 6 months, and it gets implemented, and we're good to go. We move. But then Tesla can take you can take a similar project that's around the same sort of thought process, and then they'll do it in like 5 days, right? But then during those 5 days, we are stumbling upon we're just basically like doing barrel rolls down a freaking a hill trying to figure out what we're doing here. And so we fail all the time. We're constantly failing, which hurts a lot. But then we're done in 5 days, and then that thing goes live, and it's way better than it was before. So from that perspective, it's like it depends how you think about execution. I think if you're thinking about it from like the least painful way to execute, then maybe you don't give Tesla a 10. But when it comes to just thinking about what's the final result from that execution, it's a 10 very easily,
So how would you, thinking about something like talent,
Yeah.
in your own experience, what do you think and you worked at the large company you worked at, you have a lot of positive things to say about it, which is, I think I'd rather judge Tesla against a good company than a mediocre company. So that other company was a good company. Where do you think they were in terms of talent?
I think they were. See, it's crazy because having worked at Tesla, it completely changes your scaling.
That's kind of the point. That's why you need to answer this question.
Yeah, I do, don't I? Man, damn it. Okay, I would say, man. I feel like this is going to come back to haunt me. Please, people from Philips,
you love your other team. You love the people there.
I do.
There's no look.
Yeah.
I get it, but the problem is no one else can answer this. And actually, it means a lot more when you're talking about a company that you had a good experience with. And so I just think there's not many people who can actually give kind of some context here. So
okay, all right, fair enough.
You love the other company; they gave you the leg up. Like we get all that.
Listen, I'll give you the answer.
If there are good people, they'll get it too.
I'll give you the answer because you're the first person that has ever interviewed me, so I'll give you the exclusive. Okay, I'll definitely give you. So I'll give it to you in 2 ways. So if I had never worked at Tesla, I would say the talent level at Philips is probably a 7 or an 8. Okay. It's pretty good. There's a lot of really smart people there, especially that executive team that I worked at the time, and the CEO of the company, the most brilliant person I've ever met by far. Just an absolute monster of a person. After having worked at Tesla, I would probably say Philips is probably closer to a 3 or a 4.
It's that, and they're a good company.
They're a good company.
They're a good company, a well-run company.
Yeah,
that's the differential when you're talking about the Tesla differential.
I really.
So that would mean an average company is like a 2.
More than likely, to be honest. And the reason why that is because Tesla has this ridiculous mix of talent everywhere, blue collar, white collar, whatever. There's almost like those distinctions are unfair to give at Tesla. It doesn't matter what level of the company you're looking at. The talent, the raw talent that's there, and the passion for the mission is out of this world good, especially at the facility that I worked at. Especially at that facility, you were surrounded. Every single person you talked to was brilliant. In my opinion, from what I saw, they were brilliant. They were just brilliant people. Of course, there's going to be exceptions. Like you'll have a round of folks that come in and maybe you get some hit and misses, but the ones that always stay there, every single one of them are brilliant in their own way for sure. Especially with the talents that they bring, compassionate. And kind and just there for a good reason and they want to make an impact. That's almost impossible to thinking about it from even when I own my own business. Like I'm thinking about I was working at Tesla while I owned my business as well. My wife was helping me run it. It's like, okay, how in the hell am I going to hire like Tesla's hiring? And then I sat down and I'm like, and our workforce was like, what, 4 people, 5 people? And even then I'm like, geez, this is like impossible to get such good people in the door. But Tesla's advantage is their mission. It's Elon, it's what they're working towards, and it's their product. And that combination it's unstoppable. I don't know what other company has that's even close. And that's really what sets them apart.
So motivation.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, 1 to 10 motivation.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. 2.
And
It's hard
then,
to it's hard to get up for dog food.
yeah. And again, believe it or not, I have a daughter that works in the industry.
Okay, nice.
She works at Fresh Pet, which
Oh yeah,
not too
fresh
far
man.
from where you're from.
Yeah, yeah.
Pennsylvania.
I remember driving through their manufacturing plant. Yeah,
Yep. Yep.
great product.
So now I think she went to school for that, so she's a little
Okay,
more excited. She's more on the R and
sure,
D and formulation side, marketing side. But
sure.
anyway, but the point is, it's not saving the world, right?
Right. Saving pets.
Yep. I guess so. Then execution.
Yeah. Um, Phillips executed really well. I think they really did. I would give them like a 7.
Okay.
I really would. I think my time there, man, they mostly because of the CEO and that executive team, they were freaking brilliant. Yeah, a 7, which I think is very good, because I think execution is one. Honestly, execution is one where a lot of companies can probably get close to Tesla from that front, just because of what it really comes down to is just creating a good product or a good service, right?
Right.
So I would definitely give them a 7.
Cool. Okay. Well, that was good. I think that's very interesting to get that perspective.
Sure. Great questions.
Thank you. Did you ever talk to other employees about the big Tesla, the way we do as fans? Do employees, given the pace, given the intensity, is there ever time or a reason to talk about Tesla as like we do? Do Tesla employees do that very often?
They do. Yeah. I mean, some of the best conversations I've had around that topic is when, after a shift, we would sometimes have go out to dinner or go out for drinks or something, with the team. And the entire time would just talk about Tesla. it's like we're at work for 10, 12 hours, and then we go out to dinner or drinks together for another 2, 3 hours, and then we're still talking about the mission of Tesla. It's so weird. Like if I were to look at myself, if I didn't understand what this company did for me, I'd be like, this is the craziest person I've ever met. What the hell is wrong with this person? Disconnect, get away from this thing. What is your problem? But it's again, it goes back to that fundamental nature of impact of the company. And even at work, I mean, people would often talk about it, and especially folks that on the material handler side, where they did a lot of the handling of the picking and the packing and the shipping and everything. They were very much, a good percentage of them were very much on. They were watching Stephen Mark Ryan. They were watching Dave Lee. They're watching Tesla Daily. They're watching you. They're watching a bunch of different people, right? So they're consuming Tesla, even outside of Tesla and in Tesla during the breaks. They might, bring up a video about Tesla or about Elon. They're watching Elon interviews. They're listening to the quarterly calls. That's another thing that happens. That when is the last time a material handler group from a company, the folks that are actually doing the hard work of moving the product, the just incredibly valuable work, go home and they listen to the quarterly earnings call of their company? Usually they go home screw this. I'm sick.
Right.
I'm sick and tired. No, they're yeah, I want to know how the company's doing. That's insane. That's never happened before. I don't think. I think that's very unique. And yeah, so Tesla, it's almost like a lifestyle, man. And it's weird to say, but it almost is like a lifestyle. And it's very much, Tesla as the entity, as that mission, is very much still part of the conversation, inside and outside Tesla, for those employees.
It's just weird, because you think, those of us that are here in the fan community, you wonder what it's like on the other side of the looking glass. So that's why I think this is so much fun. So do you think, I had asked you this question also, do Tesla employees look at Tesla as a car company, a manufacturing company, or a technology company?
Great question. I think it depends on the level of sort of research and intimacy they've had with the company. I think folks usually start out, for what I've seen, is they would start out as a fan of the car, as a fan of the car. And then when they really start learning about and sort of what that car does, it's electric vehicles are great from the environment. I love saving the environment. Elon is a badass. I can't wait to work for him and sort of help lead that mission forward. And then they start learning about the different things like full self-driving, You got the Tesla bot coming out. You got the solar energy. You got the batteries. You got all these different potential things coming down the pike that nobody has ever thought of yet. And then now I don't know if they start thinking about it as like a tech company per se, like by that definition, as like kind of like how you and I would think about it. But there's definitely an understanding of just how much potential the company has around what its impact could be. That it's not just cars. At the very least, I think folks understand that it sells cars, it sells solar, it sells stationary batteries, and it will completely revolutionize the way we think about driving ourselves. Right, which is that sort of that tech park. So the awareness of the different industries that Tesla is in is very much there. But I think depending on how much time they actually spend understanding that, because I do think it takes time to really get your head wrapped around that potential, then at that point their sort of understanding evolves to that. But a significant percentage of the workforce, I would say, is very much aware that Tesla is very much more a tech company and a manufacturing company than it is a car company.
Do you know of anybody? That would be really interesting. I would love to hear if there's anybody that worked at a legacy place, a legacy manufacturer that ended up at Tesla, and what their perspective of. I know you don't necessarily know that, but It would be fascinating to find someone that's been in both worlds.
Sure.
Kind of like when Sandy Munro talks about the differences, but seeing it from the eyes of someone who've actually worked on both sides, that's not a question. That's just an observation.
Sure.
Do you think that people that aren't working directly, because Tesla is most well known for vehicles, and I know you were in this situation where you weren't working on the vehicle itself.
Right.
Do you think it's harder for the people not actually connected to the vehicle to feel as connected to Tesla, or do you think everyone feels very connected to it?
That's a really good question. I think getting connected to the car helps for sure. And we recognize that early on at the facility, and so what we really started implementing was getting exposure to that car. And literally what we did is, so I owned a Model S at the time. What we did is we did a show and tell. The one morning when we had our stand-up meeting, our morning meeting, I just drove the car right into the warehouse, and I'm like, hey, check this out. Here's my car. I'm going to open up the doors, and for the next 15 minutes, you guys explore, and then they start, kind of going through the car like, oh my God, I know what this part is. This is, 164-2299-00A, oh, I touched this thing last night. It was a pain in the ass to pack, so that was so freaking cool to see. And I think that when they can see that because they especially at the building that we worked at, we touch the pieces. We don't see the full product. We see the the super bottle. We see the FSD computer. We see a front fender. We see a back fascia. Whatever you want to call it, windshields. Glass is a pain in the ass to ship. By the way, I don't know if anyone has worked with glass. Freaking, I hate glass to the core. Once that all came together and that car came through, understand what Tesla is. They understand what it's doing. But once they can see that their work is going into this thing and ensuring that when a customer's car is in an accident or needs some sort of repair, that they're responsible for getting that part to that customer, and that's where it is, where the customer can actually see it, and it's a trim, piece. It makes a big difference. So I think those that are closer to the car and being able to see the impact they're making to the car, I do think they might have a little bit more of a personal connection to the company. But we did do things to try and alleviate that by getting them closer to the car. And I believe every service facility does that now. And I do think there might be some things around like show and tells and stuff as well. But it's a super cool thing to get them to see what they do, what they touch and how that impacts the entire product.
Yeah, interesting. How do you think? Again, this might be something that maybe not everyone pays attention to, but it does seem like finally there's some decent competition emerging, especially from China. It looks like I know that hasn't quite caught up yet in other places, but it seems to indicate that the Chinese side, they're really going after this pretty aggressively. How do there really hasn't been much competition around Tesla ever. How do Tesla employees think about competition, if at all, if at all?
From my experience, it doesn't really get brought up much, if ever. I think most folks are really focused about Tesla and just really having that belief that if we just make the best thing we can, then we'll be fine. Let's just focus on making the absolute best thing we can, and trust our abilities and trust our mission. Okay. Now there are folks that do follow the competition, and I think in a very positive way. I think one thing that never gets talked about is I think I shouldn't say never gets talked about, but I think the impact of that, especially being inside, I don't think it's fully realized. So there's always like fear that I've read around, competition is coming and it's going to hurt Tesla. They're going to start losing sales. Okay. Blah, blah, blah. You have to think about the fact that Tesla has been operating without competition, like you said, for the last 18 years, really since they started, right? And back in 2006, whenever that was, 2004. And then you have this incredible community and employee base that's extremely talented, that has had to work under just like, hey, I know I'm doing the right thing and I'm going to work really, really hard to make this thing better. But they haven't had this thing where this company is like, oh yeah, but we're right behind you. We're right behind you, right? Whenever that comes, if it ever comes, I think that's going to bring such an incredible fire under, like it's going to light such an incredible fire under everyone's collective ass over there. Not that they need one, but then you add another source of fuel to it, it's only going to be good. It's only going to be a good thing, because now you have an incredibly talented workforce that not only is extremely good at executing on what they're doing today, but now they have the added fire behind them that says, oh, and by the way, there's a second company that everyone's talking about that might actually be better than yours. What are you going to do about it? And that's where I think that talent base is going to be. I don't think we've fully understood the true potential of that workforce. But just to get back to your original point, it doesn't really get thought about too much. And the ones that do think about it, they think about it in a very positive way. It's like, oh, like Rivian, for example. Rivian was something that when I was there, like people talked about somewhat, because it's cool. The Rivian looks, I personally think the Rivian looks really cool.
It looks like a good truck.
Yeah, it's getting really good reviews, and I really do hope that they are very successful, and I think they will. I think they will be very successful, and that's only good. That's good for Tesla, and that's good for all of us. I mean, we should be encouraging extremely strong competition. That's in the end that will serve everyone well.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot of Cybertruck fans that wonder if the 4-wheel steering and tank turning features would have actually been done if you hadn't have seen Hummer and Rivian.
Exactly.
It's possible. We just don't know, but we do know that it seems like, just like Michael Jordan or Tom Brady, they all seem to rise to another level when the competition rises.
Exactly. Exactly right.
When Elon does not like to talk about moats, competitive moats.
Sure.
And it seems to me that Elon's leadership and the talent and the culture of Tesla are very big competitive moats.
Yes.
Do you think that there's anybody that can, is that an accurate assessment that those are not easy to understand, but very significant competitive moats? And then whether or not do you think anyone's going to be able to sort of catch Tesla in the next 5 to 10 years based on those things?
Yeah. Great question. I do very much think that that's a moat, 100%. And I've seen it firsthand. The talent of that company is nuts, completely nuts. And combine that talent with the amount of empowering that the company gives you to really do the thing that you think is the right thing to do and work with others to make sure that that's actually correct. I think that especially in manufacturing, I feel like that's very much common in software companies from what I've heard.
Mhm.
But in manufacturing, that seems like a very new thing, or something that may have been there once and now we're not, because of all the different things that have happened with, especially in auto manufacturing, that, a lot of bureaucracy and, not that unions are a bad thing, but unions tend to be not very good for innovation. They're more good about making sure like the workforce is being treated fairly, however you want to define that, right? So I think that is very much a moat. And if I think about that, so this is just from my personal perspective, right? Like just thinking about the company and everything like that. I think that's going to be extremely difficult to catch up to. And there's really two things that could make that happen. One is a company comes out that has a mission or some sort of product that equals Tesla's in its impact, right? Because you really think about what is Tesla really about? It's about moving the world forward towards a sustainable future and releasing extremely good products, right? So there needs to be a company that comes out that is along those same exact lines, that has a very broad appeal, right? Because Tesla is really hitting every check mark when it comes to broadness. They're trying to come out with a car in every single segment. So it can't be niche. It has to be broad. And then two, I think Tesla, and I don't know if this is going to happen, to be completely honest, but I think Tesla internally needs to become a little bit, or would have to be a little bit more traditional in the way that it operates. So a lot of that speed, innovation, empowerment would need to sort of diminish or subside for those folks to feel like, well, I'm not getting what I feel like I'm getting anymore. I'm going to go to this company now, right? So that sort of that gravity that Tesla has to pull incredible talent, that would have to diminish in some way. So unless those two things happen, I don't see another company catching up at all. And forget in the next 5 years. I mean, this could be, as long as those two things exist, where Tesla's product and mission is king, and they treat their employees the way they have been treating them up to this point, nobody will catch up. They just can't. In the end, it's a talent game. It doesn't matter how good your product is. If you don't have talented people to execute against it, especially manufacturing, you have zero chances, right? Unless some company figures out how to harness AI and robotics, and now we don't even have to think about labor. It's just like the robots and the AI that's making the product. Then I would say, okay, so maybe that company wins. But that's probably going to be Tesla. That's probably going to be Tesla. So, I think there will be other successful companies for sure. But I don't think anybody, at least definitely not in the next 5 years, maybe in the next 20 years, that would challenge Tesla's dominance. I just don't see it happening. I think it's way too fundamental in nature. My opinion. I could be dead wrong, but that's how I perceive it.
It also just seems like the markets are growing faster than anybody can meet them. So there's also there's going to be this window where, even if Tesla's market share starts to decline, which it has to, of course, it can't keep 80% or whatever. It's just not possible. I think people are going to want to switch faster than they can keep up with production. So I think we'll see other people going, look, I can't wait 3 years. I got to get another vehicle.
100%.
So I think there's such tailwinds there that it gets hard to think about it. But yeah, I as a fan, obviously I'm biased, but I'm biased. I got biased because the deeper I dove, the more compelling I saw. I as being in business, I see that whole culture piece and talent piece, maybe, and you do too, having been, especially if you have to hire people and manage them, you begin to really appreciate the difference talent makes and the difference culture makes, like in terms of retaining people. Those are so hard to quantify, but they have such an outsized impact on your results as a business. And so, yeah, I just think that's one of my big, I'm not so much a believer in Tesla because of the products, though I am. It's more that talent and culture and the leadership of Elon.
Absolutely. I think that's a brilliant assessment. And I think that's the best way to view the company, is exactly through that lens. I completely agree.
if you could, just kind of shifting, maybe sort of wrapping things up,
Sure.
if you could envision what your future looks like in a year or two, what is that? If I jumped on your website, I noticed that you at least have a placeholder for a book.
Yes.
You're doing YouTube. What would success look like for you in a year or two?
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. That's awesome. So one thing I definitely want to do, I think for me, is I definitely want to travel the world with my wife and see as much of human culture as I can. I think I've again that COVID time just I think has done so much for all of us. It has had so many bad things have come out of it, to be honest, and it's been such a brutal time, especially for those that have been honest, probably less fortunate that we have. And that's painful to think about. But I think one of the silver linings is that it has given people the time to really be introspective and knowing what we went through. It's like, okay, so I don't have that much time left on this planet. Like, why am I here? Like, what the heck's going on? Why am I here? What's my purpose? And I think traveling, in my personal opinion, I think traveling is the greatest investment you can make in yourself, outside of health and fitness and making sure that you're nice and healthy, eating right and all that stuff. Traveling is by far one of the best investments one can make in themselves. So a successful 1 to 2 years for me is being exposed to a lot of different cultures around the world, getting to talk to those people, experiencing those things with my wife and growing closer with her. We have an amazing relationship, but continuing to build on that are amazing things. Playing my guitar a lot more, maybe starting a band. I think that's super, super cool. And it's very important to me. I grew up a huge metalhead. Metallica, Opeth, Gojira, like these are, I like that heavy metal. It gets a lot of my, I like to think I'm a somewhat measured, reasonable, even keel guy, but that's because I try my best to sort of hide, put that intensity inside, and then when I'm on the guitar, I just let it out, and I feel like it's so funny because I'll be like blasting death metal in the house, and my wife's like losing her mind. It's like, why are you listening to this? I'm like, it relaxes me. I'm just relaxed. I get all this thing out. So that's very important to me. And I really want to get back to connecting with that side of me a little bit. I think making sure that I create a channel that is that brings value to people is very important to me as well. Not just sharing my stories from Tesla, but maybe sharing my experiences in life, period. I like to think that I've had some unique experiences where others may benefit from if I share those stories. I think that would be really cool. And creating a nice community around that, I think, will be really cool. Spending a lot more time with friends and spending a lot more time with family, being healthy, eating right, working out, all those things, and just generally living a life that I can tell myself, once my day comes and I'm no longer really meant to be on this world anymore, where I can look back and say, okay, like you used your time very wisely. You did everything you could to be as happy as you can and help as many people as you can. You should be proud of yourself. And that's my goal, and that's really my goal now. And that's sort of what that time during COVID allowed me to really think about. And again, that the gift from the universe of financial security has been completely life-changing. And a lot of that's because of Tesla and having worked at Tesla. And yeah, I just couldn't be more thankful for that. And I'm going to use my time to make sure that I don't let the universe down.
Awesome. Well, I really thank you for agreeing to chat with me. It was
Absolutely.
very, very fun.
I agree. This was a blast, man. I had a lot of fun, for real. Thank you.
So, I'm sure we'll bump into each other out there on the YouTube, and sure. Who knows what the future holds. Hopefully there'll be some more actual in-person events that some of us can, I know they've had some in the past before COVID, where some of the content creators could get together and chat and compare notes. But I really enjoyed this. I'm really happy that you're out there. I think you have a super unique voice, and I'm so glad that someone took the plunge. I have a feeling you kind of broke the glass ceiling, so to speak. And whether that's other people getting out on YouTube on their own, or whether that's approaching and having conversations like this with other Tesla or ex-Tesla employees. I think that's going to be super fascinating. I just think, there's nothing, no one can know the inside but an insider. Mm-hmm. So, and I think we're a very passionate group of fans, you included now.
Yes.
So I'm really excited to see what you do. And I'm glad I got to be a small part of the beginning.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I really appreciate your time with this interview. Honestly, I had a ton of fun. This was super, super fun to be on here and answering your questions. And I thought this was a super fun conversation. Like I'm like so energized right now talking about it. And like, that tells you, like, I was just there working for a little bit over 4 years, and I'm here. I don't know how long have we been talking, like an hour and a half or something like that. Yes, and I'm like, yeah. And I'm like jazzed. I'm like ready, like, okay, like let's go. I'm gonna go make another video or something. All
right. Well, so, I'll be watching for your next one.
So, sounds great, man. Thank you so much. Yeah. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. We'll catch you later.
All right. Take it easy.
Bye.